The man who walked into the council. The Galactic Council Hall was built to intimidate. Marble-like pillars 3 stories high curved into arches of gleaming silver. Banners of 100-star systems swayed from the ceiling like captured trophies. At the center, under a dome painted with the galaxy's map, the council gathered, 200 delegates in robes of power and arrogance. Today, they were supposed to witness a formal discussion on trade disputes with Earth. Instead, they would see something no one in this chamber would forget. The man who walked in was human, tall, immaculate, a tailored charcoal suit cut to perfection. No visible weapons, a diplomat's badge glinting under the light. To the casual eye, he looked exactly like the stereotype, calm, polite, unthreatening. His name, according to the manifest, was Adrian Voss, senior envoy of the Terran Concord. But in the Council's classified files, Earth was a minor power. Its fleet was small, its colonies few. Humans had entered the galactic stage barely 60 years ago. They had no business standing in the same hall as empires thousands of years old. The Zorth delegate, whose empire stretched across 11 spiral arms, had made the motion to correct this diplomatic insult. They planned to show the humans their place by humiliating their envoy in public. The trap was already set. Adrian walked forward, unhurried, his polished shoes echoing on the pristine floor. His eyes didn't dart, didn't scan the exits. He didn't fidget. He simply moved, as though every soul in the room already belonged to him. The council chair, a crystalline being from the Virex continuum, spoke first, its voice like the chime of fractured glass. Envoy Voss, you stand before the assembly of civilized systems. We have reviewed your proposals, and they are insufficient. Your species seeks protections and privileges it has not earned. Adrian inclined his head slightly, his voice steady. The Terran Concord asks for nothing more than the respect afforded to all member states. The Zorith delegate let out a guttural hiss. His mandibles clicked with mockery. Respect is taken, human. It is never given. And today we shall see if you can take it. The chamber doors slammed shut. Energy seals shimmered over them. 6 armored guards stepped forward, council enforcement detail. To the onlookers, it looked like a heavy-handed attempt to escort an envoy out. To those who knew better, it was an act of violence against a recognized diplomat, an unspoken declaration that Earth had no protector here. Adrian sighed softly, not in fear, almost in disappointment. His gaze swept the guards. His lips moved faintly, counting. The first guard reached for his arm. No one saw Adrian move. One moment the guard's gauntlet hand was inches away. The next it was twisted backward at an impossible angle. A sound like cracking ice rang out. The guard dropped to one knee, weapon clattering. Gasps rippled through the chamber. The second and third guards advanced together, shock batons flaring. Adrian pivoted once. Baton number 1 skidded across the polished floor. Baton number 2 lodged itself into the rib plating of its own wielder. Both guards collapsed. The last 3 hesitated. You don't want this, Adrian said quietly. His tone wasn't a threat. It was a statement of fact. They lunged anyway. The first was disarmed before his weapon was even raised. The second was hurled into a marble column, the sound reverberating like a gong. The third found a hand on his throat, lifting him off the ground effortlessly. Adrian placed the choking guard down gently, as though handling fragile glassware, and stepped past him toward the center dais. His suit wasn't ruffled. His heartbeat, if the council monitors were to be believed, hadn't changed since he entered. The chamber was silent except for the echo of his footsteps. Adrian looked up at the tiered seats, his voice carrying without raising. I am here on behalf of the Terran Concord. My mission was peaceful. Your decision to answer diplomacy with force. His eyes locked with the Zorith delegate. Was your mistake. The Zoritha's mandibles twitched in visible agitation. You will regret touching my people, human. The Zorith Empire already regrets it, Adrian interrupted. His voice was colder than vacuum. You think I am here alone? The truth is, I was the only one who needed to walk into this room. Because when humans send a diplomat, it means they've already sent everyone else where it matters. Something in the way he said it made even the more war-hardened delegates shift uncomfortably. Then the room's comms flared to life. Urgent, frantic voices from planetary defense stations around the Zorith homeworld. Adrian didn't need to look at the screens. The delegates could see the tactical feeds themselves. An entire Zorith orbital defense grid, offline. No debris, no explosions, just silence. Every installation dead at once. The Zorith delegate froze, mandibles trembling. "What have you done?" Adrian adjusted his cufflinks. "I haven't done anything, yet. That was my assistant." He took one more step forward, and the air seemed to change, thicker, heavier. "You see a man in a suit. But where I come from, a suit is just armor you can wear in polite company." Somewhere in the upper tiers, a delegate whispered to another, their translator picking up the words despite the attempt to hide them. "He's not a diplomat, he's a war form." The whisper spread like static through the council. Adrian's gaze swept the assembly one last time. "You thought you could harm me without consequence. That Earth would swallow its pride and send someone weaker next time. But you made a mistake common to old empires." He leaned slightly closer, and for a moment, every being in the hall swore his eyes were not human at all, but something ancient and sharp, like a blade unsheathed. "You forgot that respect is taken both ways. You can take it from us, but we can take it back." The council chair's crystalline form vibrated faintly, a subtle sign of fear in its species. "Envoy Voss, what are your terms?" Adrian gave the faintest smile. "You'll have them in writing. You will sign them. And when you do, you'll remember this day when you learned that death can, in fact, wear a tie." The chamber stayed utterly silent as Adrian turned and walked out, the sealed doors parting for him as if they feared to keep him in. Outside, in the corridor, Adrian tapped his comm. "It's done. Council will play nice for a while." A female voice responded, clipped and professional. "Understood. And the grid? Leave it down for another hour. Let them stew." Adrian straightened his jacket and kept walking. It wasn't the first time someone had mistaken him for just a man in a suit. It wouldn't be the last. The ghost in the archives. The Galactic Council chamber emptied slowly, like a battlefield after an unexpected rout. Delegates whispered in hushed tones, their robes rustling as if even fabric feared to make noise. The official record would call what happened a procedural disruption. But everyone in that hall knew the truth. Something ancient and lethal had walked among them, wrapped in the skin of a man. The Zorith delegate did not leave with the others. It stood motionless, watching the sealed doors where Adrian Voss had exited. The way the human moved, calm, deliberate, as if no one in the room could stop him, felt like a scar being burned into memory. Finally, the delegate activated a private comm channel. "Open Archive 17, it ordered. The black files. Archive 17 wasn't on the Council's public database. It existed in the encrypted sublayers of the Galactic Intelligence Network, a vault for anomalies, threats, and historical incidents deemed too dangerous for common knowledge. A holographic projection appeared, a datasphere wrapped in red security glyphs. Specify subject. The archive AI droned. Human Adrian Voss. The sphere flickered. Search results populated instantly, except there weren't many. For a species with only 60 years of galactic presence, the lack of public records was normal. But for a diplomat who had just dismantled 6 elite guards without breaking stride, it was deeply wrong. The file began. Classified. Level Sigma 9. Name, Adrian Voss. Designation, Terran Concord Envoy, Civilian. Prior appearances, none recorded in Open Council archives. Flagged anomalies, multiple. Physical performance inconsistent with human baseline. Combat methodology consistent with Tier 3 warforms. The Zorith delegate's mandibles twitched. Warforms were not people. They were engineered constructs, bred or built for a single purpose: destruction. Entire empires had been broken by a single Tier 3. Humans weren't supposed to have them. The file scrolled on. Notable event, Outer Rim Blockade. Cycle 4821. Summary. Unidentified Terran, civilian, boarded enemy flagship unarmed. Within 17 minutes, blockade command collapsed. Survivors reported loss of consciousness, unexplained weapons malfunction, and feeling watched by something that wasn't in the room. Casualties, 14,892. Aftermath, Terran Concord claimed no involvement. The Zorith delegate froze on one sentence. Feeling watched by something that wasn't in the room. It deactivated the display and sat in silence. If Adrian Voss was the same operative from that incident, then the Zorith Empire had just stepped on a mine buried so deep even the Council didn't want to acknowledge it. The quiet panic. Meanwhile, in the private Council security suite, 2 analysts replayed footage from the chamber. They watched in slow motion as Adrian moved, except in the frames where the guards attacked, something was off. "Do you see that?" one whispered. "Yeah," the other said, leaning closer. "He's ahead." It wasn't that Adrian was faster. It was that he was already moving before the guards moved. The footage showed micro-adjustments in his posture moments before the attackers committed. Predictive movement wasn't impossible. It was a hallmark of top-tier assassins. But this was beyond prediction. It was as if he'd already lived the next 5 seconds and was just replaying them. One analyst muttered, "That's not reflex. That's foreknowledge." The other swallowed. "You think he's a precog?" Precogs twitch. They hesitate. This guy? No hesitation. He doesn't see the future. He knows it. The room went quiet. In intelligence circles, knowing was worse than seeing. Seeing the future was talent. Knowing it meant you had already decided how it would happen. The call from Earth. While the Council scrambled behind closed doors, Adrian sat in a private docking lounge, sipping something warm and bitter. His comm pinged with an encrypted Terran channel. "Report," a woman's voice said, sharp and efficient. "They took the bait," Adrian replied. "Security protocols will be rewritten. The Zorith delegate will lose face. And the grid, still down, letting them sweat." He paused, then added, "They'll go looking for me. You know that, right?" The voice on the other end didn't miss a beat. "Let them. The more they search, the less they'll see." Adrian's faint smile was audible in his tone. "You always did enjoy a little theater." "This isn't theater," the woman replied. "This is deterrence. You're the reminder. You walk into a room, and they remember Earth is not prey." The call ended without a farewell. Adrian set the cup down and leaned back. He'd played this role before. The suit, the calm, the polite words masking an unspoken warning. The galaxy's old empires thought humans were young and soft. And maybe they were, most of them. But every so often, Earth sent someone like him. The Zoritha's mistake. In the Zorith delegate's private quarters, rage boiled into action. A comm link to the Zorith Home Command was opened. "We've identified the human," the delegate hissed. "He's dangerous. Possibly military. Possibly something else. I want a capture order issued." The commander on the other end hesitated. "Against a registered diplomat? That's an act of war." "So was attacking our guard detail," the delegate snapped. "He humiliated us in front of the entire council. If we don't act, we're weak. And if we act and fail?" Silence. Finally, the commander said, "Do you have any idea what he really is? I've seen the black files. The last time someone tried to take him alive, they stopped breathing before they could even draw a weapon." The delegate's mandibles flared in defiance. "Then we'll send someone who doesn't need to breathe." The shadow that moved. That night cycle on the orbital station above the council world. Adrian's quarters were quiet. The lights were dim, the air recyclers a soft hum. In the corner, the shadows deepened, not naturally, but as if light itself was being pushed away. Something tall and inhuman stepped out of them, its body wrapped in a flexible armor that shifted colors like oil on water. It had no eyes, no mouth, just a smooth surface where a face should be. It moved without sound, crossing the room toward the bed where Adrian lay. Its hand, shaped more like a blade than fingers, rose for a single silent strike. The blade stopped an inch from Adrian's throat. His eyes were already open. "You're late," he said. The assassin froze. It had trained against the fastest soldiers of 20 worlds. It had never been seen before the kill. And yet the human was looking directly at it, calm as if they were meeting for coffee. Adrian sat up slowly. Tell your handler this is their only warning. Next time, they don't get their weapon back. His hand moved once, just once, and the assassin's blade arm was suddenly in two pieces on the floor, severed so cleanly that the material didn't even spark. The thing vanished back into the shadows, leaving behind nothing but the faint smell of scorched air. Adrian lay back down, closed his eyes and exhaled. He had been through this before. They always thought he could be cornered. They never understood that the suit wasn't what made him dangerous. By morning, the Zorith delegate would receive a package. Inside, in a sealed containment case, was the assassin's severed blade arm. No note, no threats, just a reminder. The Council's gamble. The severed blade arm lay in the center of the Council's high-security evidence chamber, suspended in a grav field to prevent tampering. Its surface was still glossy, the edges too clean for even the most advanced molecular cutters. The forensic teams had scanned it from every angle, dissected its internal structure, and found nothing useful. No combat marks, no trace of energy discharge, no signature of the weapon that had severed it. One scientist, a cautious carrion with 4 eyes and a nervous tremor in his hands, had offered a single unsettling theory. Whatever cut this didn't pass through it. It simply told the molecules to stop being connected. The room had gone silent. The debate. The Council convened in emergency session, this time without cameras or public recorders. The chamber was half-lit, shadows pooling between the tall silver arches. Delegates argued in low but heated tones, the sound like a hive of angry insects. The Virex chair's crystalline form pulsed faintly. We are not here to debate the physics of the incident. We are here to decide whether the human remains a threat to the stability of this body. The Zorith delegate's mandibles clicked sharply. Remains? He is a threat. He humiliated our enforcement, disabled our defenses, and sent a piece of our assassin back as a trophy. The Olinic delegate, a being of soft bioluminescent membranes, rippled in skepticism. A threat to you, perhaps. To the rest of us, he is a deterrent. The Zorith spun toward them. Deterrent? You want to make a symbol of him? Today it is Zorith honor he insults. Tomorrow, it will be your borders. The chair's voice rang like fractured ice. You suggest removal? I suggest eradication, the Zorith hissed. There was a pause, long enough for the implication to sink in. To remove Adrian Voss meant moving against Earth itself. And that was the problem. The hidden army theory. A Trascan intelligence delegate, its voice filtered through a translator, broke the silence. We've reviewed all recorded instances of similar incidents. This Adrian Voss is not the first human to act beyond their species' supposed limits. 30 years ago, the siege of Vadran 6 ended after a civilian aid worker walked into the besieged city. For hours later, every enemy combatant was incapacitated without fatalities. 15 years ago, a Terran trade representative single-handedly stopped an armed mutiny on a passenger liner. The stories vary, but the pattern is consistent. Humans send someone who looks harmless, and they are anything but. The Zorith delegate scoffed. You think there's a network of these death-suited operatives? We think, the Trascan replied evenly, that Adrian Voss is not unique. He is part of a doctrine, a policy. The idea spread like a virus through the room. A hidden army not of soldiers but of individuals placed across the galaxy. Each trained, equipped, and conditioned to appear like anyone else until they didn't. And if this is true, the chair said slowly, then we are already surrounded. The search begins. Council intelligence initiated a galaxy-wide sweep for humans fitting the profile. Traveling alone, no clear military record, too clean a background to be real. Out of 11 billion registered humans, they found only 82 who matched. Each one was quietly placed under surveillance. On paper, the operation was flawless, agents blending into human ports, observation drones disguised as repair units, AI scrubbed traffic analysis. But one by one, the surveillance reports began coming back. Incomplete. Not because the targets were gone, because the watchers had stopped reporting. Sometimes they vanished entirely. Sometimes they returned days later with no memory of the assignment. One arrived at their own headquarters in a trance, clutching a cup of Terran coffee and saying only, "They told me to go home." It was becoming clear. Even finding these people was a risk. The visit. Adrian knew he was being followed. It wasn't arrogance, it was math. When the council moved against someone, they did it in layers. First surveillance, then containment, then elimination. The man tailing him in the docking concourse was good. Human, even. Which meant this wasn't a Zorith move. It was the council's own security wing testing him. Adrian let him follow for 20 minutes before stopping at a quiet viewport overlooking the station's slow rotation against the stars. Without turning, he said, "You've got 3 questions. Make them count." There was a pause. Then the footsteps stopped behind him. A male voice, tense but steady, replied, "What are you?" Adrian's reflection in the glass didn't smile, but his tone carried the faintest amusement. "A diplomat." The man's voice hardened. "That's not an answer." Adrian turned just enough for his eyes to meet the others. "Second question?" The follower hesitated, then asked, "How many of you are there?" Adrian looked back at the stars. "Enough." The man swallowed. "And the third?" Adrian interrupted softly. "You don't want to use it. If you do, you won't like the answer." The silence that followed was thick enough to feel. Finally, the footsteps retreated. The leak. Hours later, a classified report made its way from the council's intelligence wing to several private networks. It wasn't deliberate. It wasn't even malicious. It was fear moving faster than protocol. The report was simple. Adrian Voss, possible designation, death in a suit. Likely one of multiple Terran operatives trained in high-threat neutralization. Approach not advised. If encountered, disengage immediately. Within 2 days, the phrase had spread through smugglers' channels, pirate fleets, mercenary groups, and planetary defense forces. Humans had always been considered unpredictable, but now they were whispered about as if every one of them could be a weapon in disguise. And fear, once loose, never goes back in its cage. The council's gamble. The chair called one last closed session on the matter. The debate was no longer about whether Adrian was dangerous. It was about whether they could afford to act. The Hellenic delegate was the first to speak. Eradication risks war. Inaction risks whatever it is they're building. The Zoritha's voice was venom. So we do nothing? Let them plant these people in every port, every station, every council chamber. Perhaps, the chair said, its crystalline tones precise. We let them plant them, and we watch. If they are everywhere, then every move they make teaches us something. Eventually, we will see the pattern. And when we do, the chair's voice went cold. We will cut out the heart of it in one strike. The gamble was set. They would let Adrian live, not because they feared him, but because they wanted to map the network he belonged to. It was the kind of plan that looked brilliant in a council chamber. But out in the dark, it was playing a game on a board Earth had been designing for decades. In the quiet of his quarters, Adrian received another encrypted ping from Earth. "They're keeping you alive," the same woman's voice said. "They think they can find the others." Adrian leaned back, eyes half-lidded. "Good. That means they'll stop looking where it matters." "And where's that?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "Behind them. Checkmate in the shadows." The council's plan began quietly. They let Adrian Voss move freely, the illusion of safety wrapping him like silk. On the surface, it was diplomacy, scheduled meetings, trade discussions, casual strolls through the station's concourse. In reality, every step was tracked, every conversation monitored, every contact mapped. The goal was simple: follow the spider back to the web. From their perspective, the web was Earth's hidden network of death-in-a-suit operatives. If Adrian was truly part of a larger force, his movements would inevitably lead them to others. And when they found enough threads, they'd pull hard enough to collapse the whole thing. But the council was making one critical mistake. They thought Adrian was the spider, the perfect setup. For 2 weeks, the surveillance teams worked without interference. Adrian seemed unaware or unconcerned that he was being watched. He visited neutral embassies, sampled alien delicacies, attended art displays. To the casual observer, he was exactly what his file claimed. A career diplomat enjoying the privileges of his post. It was only in the smallest details that the council's analysts found their leads. A brief handshake with a carrion cargo broker. A 30-second exchange with a dockside mechanic. A shared bench with a quiet old woman in the arboretum. Each contact was flagged, logged, and when possible shadowed. And that's when it started happening. Agents tailing the cargo broker disappeared for 2 days, returning without memory of their assignment. The mechanic surveillance drone suffered a catastrophic systems failure when it simply melted from the inside out. The old woman wasn't in any station registry. Patterns emerged. The analysts saw connections forming, each contact linking to another, like lines on a star map converging toward something they couldn't yet define. Then the chair gave the order, "Spring the net." The arrest. It was supposed to be a clean operation. On the morning of the 3rd cycle's midpoint, Adrian left his quarters for a scheduled diplomatic reception. He was intercepted halfway down a private corridor by 20 armored operatives from the Council's Rapid Containment Division. They didn't speak. They didn't threaten. They simply surrounded him, activated the magnetic restraints, and began moving him toward an unmarked transport. Adrian didn't resist. He didn't even look surprised. In the control room, the Zorith delegate watched the live feed with grim satisfaction. End of the line, human. The room without doors. The council had prepared an interrogation cell for him. An angular chamber of matte black alloys, soundproof, sensor-proof, and buried in the deepest part of the station. No comm signals in or out. No physical exits except the one he'd been brought through. Adrian was seated at a polished table, his hands free, his jacket neatly buttoned. Across from him sat 3 interrogators, each from a different species, to account for human psychology's supposed adaptability. The lead interrogator, a tall insectoid from the Cythery Reach, began without preamble. "We know you are not what you claim to be. Tell us how many of you there are." Adrian regarded him for a long moment. Then softly, "All of us." The Cythery clicked its mandibles in irritation. "Do not play games." Adrian leaned back slightly, his tone almost conversational. "You think I'm here alone, that you caught me. But the truth is, you're in my meeting, not the other way around." The interrogators exchanged puzzled glances. And then the lights went out. The turn. The blackness lasted only 2 seconds before the emergency glow panels activated, washing the room in deep crimson. But in those 2 seconds, everything had changed. The Cythery's comlink was dead. The biometric locks on the door had been overridden. And the council's security feeds, every camera, every sensor, went dark simultaneously. In the control room above, chaos erupted. "We've lost him. No, we've lost everything. Entire station grids offline." The Zorith delegate barked orders to seal the hangar bays, only to be told the bay doors wouldn't respond. The reveal. Back in the cell, Adrian stood calmly, straightening his tie. "You thought I was the spider," he said. "But I'm just the strand you could see. The web has been here for years. You've been walking through it since the day Earth joined the Council." The Cythery rose, hissing. "What have you done to our systems?" Adrian's gaze sharpened. "Not me. Them." From the red shadows behind the interrogators, figures emerged. A carrion cargo broker. A dockside mechanic. The old woman from the Arboretum. All perfectly ordinary. All completely out of place. And yet, they weren't out of place at all. "You followed the threads I left for you," Adrian continued. "Every time you shadowed one of my contacts, you stepped deeper into the net. We knew exactly where you'd be, what you'd see, and who you'd send. You didn't catch me. You walked into your own trap." The mechanic placed a small, black device on the table. Its surface rippled like liquid metal. "That," Adrian said, "is why your defenses are down. Why your fleet is deaf. Why the Zorith grid will never come back online unless we let it." The real target. In the control room, the station's senior officers realized, too late, that every external comm line was broadcasting a single signal. Not an attack. Not a demand. A message. Across the galaxy, every government, every pirate fleet, every smuggler den received it. The message contained footage of the Council attacking a registered Terran diplomat, followed by clear evidence of Zorith involvement in multiple illegal assassinations. Within hours, the Zorith Empire's political standing began to crumble. Allies withdrew treaties. Trade partners severed contracts. Their rivals moved ships into disputed territories. It wasn't a military strike. It was worse. It was isolation. The exit. Back in the cell, Adrian picked up the black device, pocketed it, and looked at the stunned interrogators. "This is diplomacy," he said quietly. "The kind your species doesn't understand. We don't conquer you with fleets. We don't threaten you with weapons. We make you realize you've already lost before you even declare war." He walked to the sealed door. It slid open at his approach. The old woman fell into step beside him. The mechanic took the rear. As they left, Adrian glanced over his shoulder at the interrogators. "Earth sends diplomats when it wants peace. The day we stop sending them." He let the thought hang, the implication heavier than any weapon. "You'll know you're out of time." Aftermath. By the time the Council restored full control of the station systems, Adrian Voss was gone. No trace in the docking logs. No surveillance footage. No jump records. It was as if he had stepped off the station and into the void. But the message he'd left behind, publicly and politically, was inescapable. The Council had attacked a human diplomat. Earth hadn't responded with warships or armies. They had responded with precision, with the quiet dismantling of an empire's political core. And somewhere, in the black files of a dozen intelligence agencies, a new designation was added. Terran Protocol, black tie. Status, active. Directive, never engage without full clearance. Rationale, death. In a suit, Adrian sat alone in the viewport of a small, unmarked transport, watching the stars drift past. His comm buzzed. The familiar woman's voice came through. "It's done."